Within a film scene, dialogue reveals to us details about the characters, their issues, and even the overall conflict. The camera can reveal other elements that characters are not aware of, and music can reveal a person's true motivation. This is information the film delivers to us with these techniques. Scream is a 1996 slasher horror film directed by Wes Craven, and the script was written by Kevin Williamson. The film revolves around a serial killer on the loose after he murders a teenage couple in the opening scene. We are then introduced to Sydney and her friends, whom we follow throughout the rest of the film as they attempt to survive the killer while also trying to uncover the killer's identity. Craven uses two devices, red herrings and foreshadowing, throughout the film to both mislead audiences while also giving them information on who Ghostface really is. Each device intertwines with the other in order to manipulate audiences' expectations. For example, let's look at this scene. The purpose of this scene is to reveal what has happened to Sydney's mother a year prior to the new murders in a news reporting. From this scene, one might assume that it is the only information we need. However, at the beginning of this scene, we get 32 seconds of build-up as Sydney goes down the stairs, then opens the closet door. Music rises, tension rises with it. But nothing pretty much happens. The camera then follows Sydney through the hallway, handheld, and quite reminiscent from POV shots used in slashers such as Halloween and Friday the 13th. It's a way to show the villain's perspective. But nothing terrifying happens in this scene. There was no scare, so why does this section of the scene serve a purpose? The track used in this scene is titled Red Herring. A red herring is when information is given to the audience and characters that leads them towards a false conclusion. Many mystery and suspense films use a red herring to distract the audience and characters away from the actual truth. For example, midway during the film when Sydney is attacked by Ghostface, we get a clear shot of his boots. The killer's boots in the bathroom scene look like those used by the police chief. The camera shot emphasizes this as an important piece of information for the audience.
First, make sure he's our man.
This is information we as the audience know while the characters don't. So he must be the killer. But the sheriff doesn't appear for the rest of the film. This is another red herring. The plot of Scream is designed to set up Billy as the killer in the first 30 minutes. By then the film would have already finished. But what the film does is that it intertwines with other visual references, objects, actions, and cinematic techniques that lead the audience away from the most predictable suspect and towards other available characters to convince the audience that they too can also be the killers. The film uses multiple red herrings against the audience as much as possible through techniques such as non-diegetic sound.
So, two of your fellow students just savagely murdered. And this is the way that you show your compassion and sensitivity, huh?
Music and lighting.
I thought maybe we'd walk. Such a nice night out. Got a flashlight. You're not scared, are you?
All right.
Great.
And even dialogue and objects.
What is it?
This is Neil Prescott's car.
Sydney's father?
Yeah. Jesus, what's he doing here?
Clues and other pieces of information then form our expectations about these characters, only to be fooled. But it's not the only device the film uses. Later that night, Sydney gets a call from Ghostface. Tension is rising. Ghostface is playing around with Sydney about where he could be before he kills her. We had established earlier that this moment with this closet was a red herring.
Fuck you, you creep.
One can also argue that this moment acts as foreshadowing, as this is the same closet the killer jumps out of later in the film. Now let's talk about the villain. That scene with the closet, that moment was disguised as a red herring when it wasn't. It was foreshadowing. And just like that, Billy's involvement in the murders was disguised as a red herring when in fact it wasn't. There was plenty of foreshadowing to show that his character was one of the killers from the very beginning. In our first encounter with Sydney and her boyfriend Billy, they talk about their relationship. Billy turns on the radio and a song starts playing in the background. The camera angle shifts to a much lower angle as Billy is persuading her, but pay attention to the lyrics.
I just thought maybe we could do a little on top of the glow stuff.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The way Ghostface is represented within the film, the black cloak, the hood, the description is quite representative of a Grim Reaper, a personification of death. As Ghostface plays around with his victims, no matter how his victims win by beating him at his games, they still die.
What's the matter, Sydney? You look like you've seen a ghost.
It's all part of the game, Sydney. It's a fun game, Sydney. See, we ask you a question, and if you get it wrong, you die.
You get it right, you die.
Stu's character is also foreshadowed to be one of the killers as well through the use of dialogue.
Ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.
You see, you push the laws and you end up dead. Okay, I'll see you in the kitchen with a knife.
Oh, there he is. I told you. I told you.
Behind you. Behind you.
Even in this scene, Randy pretty much solved the entire mystery halfway through the movie.
You know what I think it is? I think it's her father. And why can't they find her pops, man?
Because he's probably dead. I'm telling you, the dad's a red herring. It's Billy.
Randy dismisses, stating that the father would be a red herring, in which he was. Just as the director uses red herrings to mislead the audience, the killers use a red herring to mislead the characters. Another thing I want to add to this analysis is the use of color. The film utilizes color with Billy's clothes to show the audience that Billy is the killer right before he is in custody, and after custody, color is used to convince the audience that he is innocent, just as he's trying to convince Sydney. The film does this to shift the audience's perspective about Billy. With our first scene with the group, Billy and Stu are shown to have the same grey shirt with a similar pattern. It is later revealed that Billy and Stu are the killers, and this is a visual aid to how they were partners in crime from the very beginning. Grey is an unemotional color. As you see the group of friends sitting together with bright clothes, the real killers are just hiding in plain sight. Later that same day, Billy is seen with the same shirt and a black jacket, especially with low-key underlining, a common technique used to identify an antagonist in a horror film. But the film then backtracks with the use of color on Billy, now in attempts to convince the audience that Billy isn't the killer. When first introduced to Billy in this scene, Billy is wearing white, which represents innocence, with blue on top signifying trust and loyalty, while later, after he is released and attends the party, he's using the same colors as before when convincing Sydney he is innocent. The use of foreshadowing reveals the identity of the real killers, while also intertwining with other pieces of information that leads the audience away from the most predictable suspect. That is how the film manipulates the audience's expectations, as these red herrings were put in place by both the killers and the director, manipulating both Sydney and the viewers alike.